Today we're speaking to Wendy Killeen and Dave Horne from Stanton Killeen in Rutherglen. Dave's the winemaker, Wendy is the owner, and we welcome them to The Real Review and congratulate them on being one of our top wineries of the year for 2022. Hello, both of you.
Hello, Huon, and thank you very much for the honour.
Yes, thanks, Huon.
Great to see you. And so, Dave, you're a new winemaker at Stanton and Killeen. Can you fill us in on your background, firstly?
Yeah, I've been making wine since the early 90s and came from Petaluma over here on a contract to help Wendy out for vintage. She was looking for someone with fortified wine knowledge, and I had 20 years of experience in the Barossa making fortified wines. So I jumped at the challenge.
So Wendy, it must be a little bit challenging to find winemakers with that sort of depth of experience in fortifieds these days.
Huon, I can't say it's impossible, but it's almost impossible. And we've been recruiting now for 12 months and with no luck really. And also we're not even getting any winemakers that don't have experience. So I think it's a bit like viticulturists. There's a real shortage of skilled people who want to move out into the regions.
Yeah, so we can't blame this on COVID, can we? We blame just about everything else on COVID, but the shortage of winemakers, maybe not.
That's true. So, but we're very optimistic, and we've really loved Dave being here. And I've even said to him, if he wants to go back to South Australia, he could be a fly-in, fly-out winemaker for us.
Your mention of the Iberian varieties, obviously the dry red you're talking about is the Prince, which is named after your late husband, Chris Killeen, who was known as the Prince of the Portuguese varieties, I think.
Yes, he was, yes.
And also, you've been using your Portuguese varieties in the what used to be known as vintage port, now known as vintage fortified. And I think this 2018 scored particularly well for you this year. Lovely wine. I've got a little glass of it here just to remind me how good it is.
We have two.
Excellent, excellent. So Dave, this sort of wine, have you played around with the Portuguese varieties before in vintage port styles?
Very early on, I made a Touriga vintage port back in Roseworthy days, but no, it's been a really great opportunity to experience the Portuguese varieties and make vintage ports with them this year.
So it seems to me from tasting Portuguese table wines, which I get to do from time to time, that these varieties, these traditional Portuguese port varieties, are pretty damn good for red wines too. What's your feeling on that?
From a winemaking point of view, I've been absolutely amazed by the quality of the Portuguese varieties. I'd only ever dealt with Tempranillo in the past, so to deal with Tintacao, Sazao was amazing. They're just quite unique in their structures and they're quite elegant, but still robust. They're very well suited to this climate.
Excellent. And so what sort of a vintage did you have at 2022? I believe it wasn't a perfect vintage, but did you make some good wine?
I think 2022 is going to be one of those vintages that the reds will last forever. The cool ripening season, like I don't think we've got a day over 35 here, which I believe is almost unheard of. So we were probably 3 weeks late in harvesting, which was good for us to get ready in time, only starting in January. And we were able to just take off each variety from each of the blocks as it came ready. We weren't really rushed into it because everything was drawn out so much, which is great.
Yeah, so maybe not such a great fortified year, but a very good table wine year.
It's going to be a great fortified year as well.
Yeah, we're very happy, Huon, with the year, and I've tasted Dave's Portuguese whites he made and the reds, some of the components of the reds and the fortifieds, and we're pretty excited for the future. Just with the quality that we've produced this year, it's one of those years that you go, oh wow, we've really nailed this year.
Sure. So Stanton Killeen has quite a history in the district, and I remember Norm Killeen quite fondly and well from my early days in the industry. Can you give us a bit of the history, Wendy?
Yes, we're a winery approaching 150 years of continuous family business. The Stantons planted in 1875, and our oldest vineyard here on site was planted in 1921 by Jack Stanton. So my daughter Natasha is now the 7th generation vigneron, and I feel we're going strong, and we're very proud of the fact that we've had a long history. Fortified's 50% of our production, and we've branched out into the Iberian blends, the Iberian varieties as a point of difference, but we planted them for port production, as you mentioned earlier, and now we make 5 different red wines, and we've got 2 white wines as well. So we're becoming well known not only for Fortifieds but also the table wines. And after all these years, I think I feel there's a fair bit of respect for our brand amongst our consumers and the industry.
We've heard about the Portuguese red varieties, but what are the Portuguese white varieties that you've got?
In 2015, we planted Orinto and Alvarinho. So Alvarinho is from right up north of Portugal in the Vinha Verde region, and Orinto is from the Alentejo region. We planted those, we chose those out of a list that was extensive that Natasha put together. I chose those varieties because we were looking at the severe heat we were experiencing back in those days. And there were some summer days, January, February days that were 45, 46 degrees, and there was a westerly wind blowing. And so we chose those varieties for 2 reasons: to add to our Portuguese portfolio, but also to help us along the way with climate change.
And is Alvarinho, which is the Portuguese spelling with a V and an H in it, is it the same variety as Alvarinho, which the Spanish use in the north of Spain?
Yes, I believe so.
And do you make them as a blend, or do you make them singly?
No, single, just single varietals. And I'll let Dave explain to you how we made them this year. In 2019, we won gold medals and trophies for the 2019 vintages of those 2 whites. And this year, Dave went back to that style. We wanted pure fruit. We wanted the fruit to sing rather than any intervention with different yeasts and what have you. So they're absolutely delicious wines. They're wonderful.
So fresh and light and crisp and refreshing from my memory of the Orinto. Would you like to pick that up, Dave, and explain how you made them this year?
That was a real pleasure to make these wines this year. We monitored the acids as much as we monitored the Beaumay, and then so the acids naturally retained so well that we could pick exactly the right flavour ripeness we wanted to, which we did, and didn't have to add any acid to the juices once they were pressed out. So the Alvarinho we made in a fresh style, so it was cold settled, clear juice, fermented, very neutral yeast, stainless steel, and basically just racked onto light lees, waiting for bottling coming up shortly. But the Orinto, we looked to build a little bit of complexity in the mid palate by I put 50% of it into 1 and 3-year-old French oak puncheons, and just matured them in those puncheons for 2.5 months. Not so much to get the oak characters, but just to give a little bit more texture to the wine, to give them a point of difference from the Alvarinho. So the Orinto and the Alvarinho, I really loved making these varieties this year. New to me, so once again the learning curve was great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll be very interested to hear to talk with you some more about that in the future, maybe when we've got some time. So, congratulations again on being selected as one of the top wineries of Australia for 2022 at the Real Review. And thanks for your time today. We look forward to catching up with you at some of our events in the next few weeks.
Yes, thank you, Huon. We feel really proud that we were part of your top 52. I mean, the last few years we've been in your top 300 or 380 or whatever it was each year. But to be placed in your top 52 was a dream, really. So thank you very much.
We're pleased to have you on board, and your very good health. I'm going to have a sip of this now and enjoy it. Cheers, guys.
And to your good health. Thank you.